Oh man, I am so excited to do this. Whew, you have no idea. We're gonna be talking about the brand new Maruyama 5PC gas blowback submachine guns, fresh off the press on the shelves at airsoftgi.com. For those of you who have been following the channel, we already did, I guess you would say, like a basic brief overview of our thoughts and opinions on the new Maruyama gas blowback SMGs in previous week's video. But this is gonna be more of a deep dive as to, like what kind of parts is it running, what's the performance like, what can we recommend you to use this for in a real practical airsoft setting. So that's gonna be more of what we're gonna be talking about in today's video. But just to reiterate, the Maruyama brand lineup, we were acquainted with at MOA Taiwan in 2024. So last year we went to Taiwan and went to the Airsoft specific show over there, and we ran into this brand called Maruyama. And I gotta say, we instantly fell in love with how freaking sick and cool their airsoft guns were. And they're not only just very well built, but they shoot pretty damn good as well. So let's go ahead and take a deeper look. One interesting thing that we learned about Maruyama as a brand when we're in Taiwan is that they're primarily an airsoft company that designs all their airsoft guns over in Japan, kind of like the brain of airsoft in the world, if you could say so. And they manufacture everything in Taiwan. So I think that's pretty cool. Just generally, I think Taiwan, they tend to manufacture airsoft guns to a higher standard, so that's very good to see. But one interesting thing that they told us is that they decided to go with VFC to manufacture all of the parts for their Maruyama airsoft guns, which is pretty cool to see because VFC, yes, they do make their own airsoft guns in-house and they sell them under the VFC brand, but they will also be an OEM, a manufacturer for other airsoft brands out there as well. For example, you have like the Elite Force Humerex Glocks, which are made by VFC. You have all the SIG Air products like the M17, M18, and the MPX, MCX. Those are all OEM by VFC as well. And not only that, but overseas, there's a lot of other airsoft brands that will also go through VFC's factory to make their airsoft guns, which make them very high quality. But one really cool thing about VFC, especially when it comes to their gas blowback guns, is that they're extremely realistic and they're very quality built. So the first gun that we're gonna see over here today for the 5PC lineup is going to be the Maruyama 5PC Pro PDW. And first looks at a glance, obviously absolutely gorgeous, stunning finish here on this airsoft gun. But right away, you can tell when you pick this guy up, it's gonna be of a hybrid design. So the lower receiver group is gonna be made out of polymer, a really nice thick polymer, I might add. And then the upper receiver group and the handguard and everything else is pretty much gonna be made out of metal, which is great. But one thing I find surprising is that the upper and low receivers, they mate perfectly, and I mean perfectly because there is no receiver wobble at all. Okay, so a lot of times when you have things made from different materials come together, sometimes the tolerances are pretty loose. Not with the Maruyama 5PC. This guy feels like one solid piece when you pick it up. Even things like the handguard mating to the upper receiver group, it is absolutely locked in place, which is really good to see, and it feels extremely high quality in the hands. Now that we're done talking about at a glance here what the 5PC is going to be made out of and the build quality, let's talk about some of these features here, especially what they offer you when it comes to the functionality of this SMG. So starting with the lower receiver group over here, you're going to see that it has a full set of ambidextrous controls, which is great. I specifically love the selector, which is again completely ambidextrous on either side of the gun. I love how it has a nice long thumb shelf, so that way you're able to easily flick between your firing mode positions, okay? So one other thing is that it works equally well on either side. So a lot of times when you have ambidextrous fire selectors, you're gonna notice that it's gonna favor one side over the other, but not with the 5PC. This guy, it feels natural on both ends of the receiver, okay? So you're gonna have your typical safe, semi, and then if you do a full 180-degree rotation, you'll get into full auto. And I don't know if you heard that there, it is crispy. It just clicks so nice. I'm gonna get it close to the mic so you guys can hear. Now over here, you're gonna see that it's gonna have a completely ambidextrous magazine release. And the cool thing is it's like an AR style mag release. So it's a button, you just press it, it opens up, and it works equally well on either side, either left or the right side. Very easy to do. And then above the magazine release is gonna be the bolt release, which you just press down on the lever. Very easy to do so. So I think the Maruyama 5PC is very well designed, especially when it comes to their fire controls. It's very intuitive, especially if you're coming from like that M4 background. You're gonna be right at home with this control system over here. Now, moving up towards the top of the gun, you're gonna notice that earlier I did pull back the rear charging handle. It looks almost, actually at this point, it is pretty much almost identical to the standard M4 charging handle, which is great. It's ambidextrous, easy to locate on either side, that you can quickly rack and load this gun. Fantastic. And then of course, just specifically to the 5PC Pro PDW, you have the PDW stock, which is nice. There's nice little indents or grooves for you to select which position you want to be in. And then you have this large button here in the rear. You just press up and you could kind of fine tune what position your stock is going to be in, which is nice. But for me personally, I'm very much of the mind that if you're going to run a PDW stock like this, you're either going to be all the way in or all the way out. And that's one thing I love about this PDW stock too, is that it just rips out. There's some PDW stocks out there where you do have to press the button in order to deploy it. Not with this guy. It's made for that rapid deployment. You just yank on that guy and it is good to go. Now moving up towards the top, obviously you're gonna notice you're gonna get a full monolithic top rail, so you can mount your standard style red dot sights, maybe even larger red dots like this LCO up top here. I'll accept it, no problem. And moving to the front, there is going to be a side charging handle, which I believe you can move it to either side of the gun depending on where you want it to go. And so you have two ways to rack this guy. You could rack it from the front up here on the side. I'm gonna go ahead and flip it over to show you, right? And you can also do it traditionally like an M4 style back here. So it's really cool that Maruyama thought of those details and gave it to us, the players, so we can have options to choose on how to use this guy. Next up, let's talk about the handguard real quick, okay? So it is going to be the typical M-LOK modern handguard. So you have the top Picatinny, obviously, so that you get that full travel monolithic rail segment. And then you got M-LOK here on the 3 and the 9 o'clock position, but you get one slot. So it's like a little itty bitty bit of modularity, I suppose. As you can see here, I was able to mount like those mini flashlights here on the side. So you do get some customization if you so choose to do that, but your options are a little bit limited here just because of how small this guy is. And on the bottom, what is unique is that there is Picatinny here on the bottom, which is, again, interesting, instead of just going that full M-LOK. I'm not sure why Maruyama decided to do that. Sometimes these manufacturers would think it's a good idea to add mix and match Picatinny, but come on, man, like we all just want a full M-LOK handguard, all right? Other than that, you have this little itty bitty, I think it's like a 4-inch or like 3-inch outer barrel, very small, and it's attached to the standard 14mm counterclockwise threading, which is great. So if you want to run things like tracer units or barrel extensions or mock suppressors like you see here, very easy to do so. And finally, I just want to touch on the pistol grip over here, which is going to be of its own unique design. I like the texturing. It's very thin, which is actually easy for us to grab a hold of, especially if you have smaller hands. It's just really easy to get a nice positive grip on it. But if you don't like this and you want to trade it out for another kind of pistol grip, very easy to do so. It's running that standard gas blowback pistol grip design. Hell, even if you want to put like a real steel AR-15 style pistol grip on here, it'll accept it no problem, which is great to see. But let's talk about the elephant in the room. Of course, the magazine, because this magazine looks like nothing we've ever seen before on the airsoft market. Now, this kind of sort of reminds me of like the KWA KMP9 magazine, but instead it has that nice smoky, translucent, like plastic polymer kind of shell instead of like a full metal magazine, which is really interesting. I will say the nice little grooves here on the top actually helps you grip it, especially if you're pulling out of a mag pouch. Really great. You have a polymer feed lip over here, so I would be a little bit more careful, especially if you're going to be dropping these magazines. I would try to drop it in a way that it will land on the bottom base plate every time instead of, you know, if you flick out the mag, the chances are higher that you're gonna impact on the feed lip and break it. So just some word of caution here. If you're gonna drop magazines, make sure you try to drop it straight up and down, okay? But the reinforced base plate here, nice thick polymer. I love that they did this because they probably knew that you're gonna be running around indoors in CQB environments. You're not gonna have time to do the gas blowback reload where, you know, you are careful with the mag, you re-index it or put it in a dump pouch and then you pull out the next mag. You're not gonna be doing that, okay? The 5PC was not made to do that. So you're gonna be dropping these mags, so I'm glad they thought ahead and just included that base plate. Obviously here on the sides, you have like this nice printed paper decoration of like the fake bullets. Very interesting, kind of nice at a glance, I would say. But one thing I love is that even with this transparent style magazine, they made it extremely functional because on the very front of the magazine, you'll notice that you'll see the magazine spring. So that means when you're loading the magazine, you'll see clearly how many rounds you have left. And you have the fill valve here all the way at the bottom. Now, there's a couple things I want to talk about this magazine that I find, like, I guess some quirks about it. Is number one, because this is a polymer shell, you're gonna have a very hard time gauging how cold your magazine is, especially if you've been using this a lot all day. You're not gonna really be able to tell like how much cooldown you have on your mag. One way that I was able to figure out, I guess, how cold or warm my magazine is that here on the bottom where the fill valve is, this is made out of metal. So if you put your thumb over it, you're able to get a good idea of how hot or how cold the magazine is. So that might be able to help you out just if you guys have a lot of magazines and you're trying to rotate them around. This is definitely going to help you out on the field. Now, the next quirk I noticed is that the magazine itself will hold 45 rounds, which is pretty generous. But if you load all 45 rounds, you're going to have a hard time inserting the magazine into the gun. I think it's because just with how the magwell and the magazine is designed, because it kind of sits at an angle, interestingly enough, so it has a hard time actually catching when you insert it with all 45 rounds. And I think that's because there's no more, I guess, like give on the spring itself, so it makes it a little tough. So a couple of remedies that we figured out here at Airsoft GI is number one, underload your magazine. So what I will do is I'll fill all 45 rounds and then I'll download anywhere between 1 to 5 rounds. For me, I learned that if I unload 5 rounds, so instead of 45, I'm holding 40 rounds. I'm pretty much every time guaranteed to get this mag to fit with no problem. Or if you really want all 45 rounds in your mag, one thing that I have done is as soon as you jam the mag into your gun, you have to kind of rock the magazine forward and then you'll kind of feel it click into place. So that's another remedy. And one thing that we have tried that does work time to time is putting electrical tape on the back of the magwell. But if you do that, keep in mind your magazines will no longer drop free. So for me personally, whenever I'm using the 5PCs, is that I'll just download 5 rounds. So now I'm at a 40 round capacity. That's still plenty of ammo. So I'm able to get my reloads smooth every single time. One really cool thing we learned about these 5PC magazines is that they're extremely gas efficient. Let me tell you about the gas efficiency here. When we're shooting the 5PCs, both the short and the longer version, we were able to get, with a moderate cadence of fire, I'm not talking about spamming it or going full auto, but at a moderate cadence of fire, we were able to get about 4.5 magazines in one fill of green gas, which is insane. And what I mean by one fill of green gas is I put the magazine upside down, get my can of green gas, and I charge it for about anywhere between 10 to 15 seconds. And you get about 4.5 magazines worth of BBs, which again, kind of ludicrous. I've never really seen that level of gas efficiency before on a gas blowback primary like this. So that was pretty cool to see. But I will say, after you empty your third mag, you will notice a drop in muzzle velocity and consistency. You're really stretching it at that point. So I would recommend that if you're gonna play on semi-auto with this guy and you're gonna be doing some sporadic bursts of fire, I would say you should top off your gas every 2.5 to 3 magazines for the best performance. Now, moving on to the internals of the 5PC, this is going to be identical for both the long boy and the short boy, is that it is going to be of its own proprietary design, okay? It is what it is. There's nothing out there on the airsoft market right now that uses this spec of parts. And so hopefully in the near future, we might see an aftermarket for this guy. But as far as the trigger group goes, and you know, the selector and the magazine catch and the nozzle return spring, and even the buffer system, it's all its own thing. But it is very well built. So I'm very confident at how, I guess, nice or well built the internals are on this guy. And even the bolt carrier group itself is fairly lightweight. It doesn't take a lot of gas for this guy to cycle. And the bolt itself also doesn't travel very far, which is nice, which kind of helps it give you that high gas efficiency. Now, talking about the hop-up is going to be a TDC style design. So you're gonna insert a 2.5 millimeter hex key, which they will provide for you out of the box, on the top. So basically where the upper and the handguard meet, there's a hole. So you're gonna stick that in there, and that's how you adjust your hop up. I think that's so much more convenient and nice to do, especially when you're zeroing this at a field. It's so much easier to do than all the other, I guess, hop-up systems out there for gas blowback. Even with things like the Tokyo Marine MWS, you still have to do the thing where you split apart your receiver group, and you have to like do the, you know, mess with the hop-up wheel, then put it back together. This guy, you just stick a 2.5 millimeter hex key in there, adjust your hop up, take it out, you're good to go. And it's been holding really well. We've run hundreds of rounds through this, and it's been holding its hop pretty damn well. Now, I would say the only thing that's not proprietary about the 5PC system is going to be the barrel, inner barrel, and the hop up bucking. Okay, so both of these are going to be completely TM compatible, so you could put any Tokyo Marine spec gas blowback inner barrel and hop up bucking into this guy, and it'll do just fine. Now, let's talk about the performance real quick on the 5PC-9s. So the thing is with the 5PC-9 is that no matter which version you get, the barrel length is all gonna be the same. It's gonna be about 135 millimeters. So from the hop-up unit to the tip of this barrel, you're gonna get 135 millimeters, which is roughly kind of like a longer or a full-size gas blowback pistol barrel length. So you could kind of expect to get a similar range and performance from that. So from our testing, just completely bone stock. When you put 2-gram BBs in there, you're able to, I guess, effectively engage targets anywhere between, I would say, about 80 to 100 feet, fairly accurately, fairly consistently with 0.2-gram BBs. Anything past that, the BBs will start to lose their flight path because they're so light. But if you decide to put in heavier BBs, let's say like a 0.30-gram BB, you're able to kind of extend that range all the way from like 120 to 150 feet. And again, anything past that, you're gonna start to drop because the BBs are heavy. So I think because of how lightweight the bolt is and how little gas it actually uses to cycle this guy, you're also gonna lose a lot of that gas volume. So I would not expect this guy to be a sniper. This guy is such a small little package. Just by looking at it, you know what it's gonna be good at. It's gonna be good at cornering tight corners and shooting people pretty close up at a CQB indoor environment. So with this thing being CQB ready and tailor-made for CQB environments, when we measured this guy up to a chrono, it chronoed anywhere between 280 to around 300 feet per second with a 0.2-gram BB at around 60 degrees Fahrenheit. And then in full auto, it has a rate of fire anywhere between like 10 to 12 rounds per second. So it's a very moderately shooting airsoft gun. And I'm surprised at how not hot this guy shoots out of the box. Typically, a lot of times when we see gas blowback SMGs, they tend to shoot fairly hot to the point where you will not be able to use it indoors right away. So it's pretty cool to see that Maruyama decided to come out with a gas blowback SMG that you could pretty much run indoors immediately without needing to change to like a low power bolt or anything like that. But even with this long boy, you would kind of think that it would do pretty okay in outdoor scenarios. That was actually not the case. And we're kind of wondering like, how is that possible? Because the barrel is so much longer. Well, We opened this guy up and we realized that the inner barrel is actually exactly the same length as the small guy. So the increased barrel length is just for cosmetic function only. So it has 135 millimeter inner barrel. If you want to get an inner barrel that lines up all the way to the end of the outer barrel, it's roughly at around like 180, 185 millimeters. But internally, it's rocking the same exact inner barrel. So there's some food for thought there. And then even with the chrono, this guy chrono is exactly the same at around 280 to 300 feet per second. Now, let's talk about the rate of fire real quick, because the rate of fire is, like I said, extremely moderate. It is anywhere between 10 to 12 rounds per second. Now, at a glance, obviously, it's not as impressive as some of the other gas blowback SMGs out there that can really rip on the field, but I think it's cool that they found a way to slow down that full auto rate of fire, because it makes full auto very viable. I think that if you want to run this, let's say like in 2 to 3 round bursts, it's very manageable. You're not gonna overshoot your enemies. And also, more importantly, when it comes to the function of this guy, you could get through a magazine by burst firing the gun, just fine, and not have the magazine cool down like crazy compared to those, again, other SMGs out there. So I think it's kind of a double-edged sword. Is it gonna be as intimidating or as impressive as some other SMGs that can fire 20 to 30 rounds per second? No, but is it gonna help you out in the long run and keep you running full auto for longer at the airsoft field? Absolutely. But over here is the 5PC-9 Carbine. Obviously, it is going to be different than the PDW, namely going to be the addition of a buffer tube and the longer outer barrel and handguard. Now this time you do get 3 sections of M-LOK on the top, Picatinny on the bottom, and Picatinny on the top. And of course, you're going to get the same great top adjustable hop-up unit over here where the receiver group and the handguard meet. Like I said, if you wanted to run this guy outdoors, if you wanted to get a bump in muzzle velocity and long range accuracy, I would highly recommend that you swap this guy out with, let's say, a unicorn inner barrel, like 180 millimeter inner barrel, and like a maple leaf 80-degree bucking. It would definitely benefit from that, just because you're gonna get a more precision inner barrel, and it's longer, and it's gonna take advantage of more of that expanding gas as it comes out of the airsoft gun. Now, one thing I would say is that just from firing this guy, I would highly recommend shooting these guns in semi-auto only, just because your mags aren't going to last way longer. So you're going to have to worry less about the mags cooling down and losing efficiency over time. And if you fire this guy in full auto, even though it's only shooting 10 to 12 rounds per second, you're gonna eat through these mags really quick, and the mags are gonna cool down exponentially faster. So I highly recommend you keep it in semi-auto, and it's extremely fun to shoot. So one interesting thing of note about the 5PC-9, both the long and the short guy, is the side charging handle. It is nice to have that side charging handle if you want to rack the gun up from the front with your support hand, instead of doing it all the way back here. But as soon as you mount any form of accessory on the top rail, regardless of the length, like I said, you will lose the side charging handle ability. There really hasn't been any accessories I've been able to successfully mount to the top of this guy and retain its side charging functionality. It requires you to completely have the handguard clear. So that's just one thing for you guys to look out for. If you do want to retain that side charging handle ability, just keep your top rail completely clear. Or if you decide to mount, let's say, things like PEC boxes or flashlights, iron sights, or whatever here on the top of the handguard, you're gonna have to charge the gun from the rear. One more quirk about the 5PC-9, specifically the Carbine, is that it will come with the Car 15 stock out of the box, by the way. I decided to go ahead and remove it and put this slimmer stock instead, just because I think it just makes the package look overall just sexier, in my opinion. This guy is, it belongs on a Car 15, okay? So just keep that in mind, but it goes to show you it's pretty much compatible with any mil-spec style M4 stock, which is good, because this guy is a little dated. And finally, we're gonna talk about the upgrade potential here on the 5PC-9 series. If you're gonna take this guy outside of an indoor CQB airsoft arena, I would highly recommend changing out the inner barrel and hop-up bucking, specifically to get a hop-up bucking like a maple leaf that is going to be very thick and hard. like a 70-degree or an 80-degree bucking, I would highly recommend that, just so that way the bucking is more stable, especially when it gets a huge influx of gas passing through it. The inner barrel here for the 5PC carbine, I'm gonna recommend anywhere between like 180 to 185 millimeters if you wanna swap that out. That'll take it to the end of the outer barrel here. It should give you a good FPS jump. It should anywhere between like 20 to 30 FPS increase. So you're more than likely gonna be CQB legal. And if you wanna run something like a trace unit out in front, you'll still be able to do that. Now for the smaller 5PC PDW, it is 135 millimeters in length. Again, same thing, run a harder bucking, like a 70 to 80 degree bucking from like, let's say Maple Leaf, and then run 135 millimeter gas blowback barrel. So that way, again, you could still use something like a trace unit if that's something you wanna go for. But here at airsoftgi.com, we will be offering that outdoor player package. If you're someone like me who loves playing outdoors, but you still love these compact CQB style guns and wanna run them in the outdoor airsoft fields, we got you covered. So we're gonna be selling these 5PC models with versions that will run an upgraded bucking and inner barrel as well, and a mock suppressor to cover up that extended inner barrel. So for the 5PC-9, it's gonna be somewhere around 320 millimeter inner barrel that we're gonna be throwing in there, and a nice hard 70 to 80 degree bucking. And of course, you're gonna get this nice Mark 16 style mock suppressor, which is pretty nice. I think it kind of meshes well together, specifically with how clean and sleek the 5PC is. And with the 5PC PDW, we're gonna be offering another custom package where again, we're gonna extend the length of the inner barrel and also drop in a tougher bucking. So it's gonna be that harder 70 to 80 degree hop-up bucking paired with I think it's a 340 millimeter length inner barrel, just because this mock suppressor is longer and it's gonna take full advantage of the gas expansion when the BB is shooting out the inner barrel. It's interesting because the smaller gun has the longer inner barrel length, but generally I wouldn't recommend going past a 340 millimeter length inner barrel, just due to the fact that the 5PC is not drawing a ton of gas every time it shoots. It's kind of sipping on the green gas every time you pull the trigger. And so because of that, there's less of that gas expansion effect taking place compared to things like a Tokyo Marui MWS or Category LM4. Those full-size gas loaded rifles tend to draw a lot more gas every shot, so you can justify running longer inner barrel lengths. Not with this guy, just with how short the bolt is traveling and how little the mag is expelling gas out of it. You're kind of limited as to also how long you're gonna be running this. If you're running longer inner barrel, you will experience some diminishing returns. No matter which model you run with, whether you get the 5PC carbine or the PDW, it is such a fun, refreshing breath of air when it comes to breathing in life into your airsoft game, especially if you've been playing with nothing but AEGs your whole time in airsoft. It feels nothing like an AEG. And even the trigger. And you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and ghost this trigger together. Why don't we? I'm gonna go ahead and clear the gun. There's nothing in it, okay? All right, and then I'm gonna go ahead and put this gun on fire. All right, the trigger is already cocked back, and there's like a millimeter, if that, of play here. It's like it's a nice single stage trigger pretty much. You're already there at the wall. Nice crispy break, if you heard that. And when you break the trigger, again, it barely moves. It's like a million times, it's like 3 or 4 times shorter than your standard AEG, okay? And then I'm gonna go ahead and reset that trigger. Okay, so that was about like 2 or 3 millimeters of reset, and you feel it in your trigger finger when the trigger resets. Very good. And then of course, immediately you're able to break that trigger. I love how snappy and how the trigger basically snaps when it breaks. It feels so good. It feels a lot better than a lot of higher end gas blowback rifles, honestly. I would even go out on a limb to say that the trigger is actually snapped, like it's more tactile and it's crispier than even my personal Tokyo Marui MWS. There, I said it, okay? The trigger is nicer than on my Tokyo Marui. So that's really cool. But I would say that, again, the 5PCs, it is so much fun to shoot. Even for someone like a gas blowback enthusiast like me, who's been running gas blowbacks for years, I just think that this is such a nice, refreshing breath of fresh air. Just because of the fact that with the 5PCs, obviously, you can run a shorty M4 if you wanted to. You know, you could run an M4 AG if you want to, and spam like 100 rounds downrange. You know, it all being, you know, like shooting laser beams across the field. That's great and all, but after a while, that gets boring. You know, you playing the same exact way over and over again, it becomes stale over time. And the reason why I ended up switching to gas blowback after my 16 years of playing Airsoft is that it's a completely different way to play the game. Just because you're limited on ammo capacity. Every time you pull the trigger, it feels good. You know, there is some kind of feedback, some form of recoil snapping back into your shoulder. You know, even when you have to reload, it's not just you jamming another mag in there, but you have to do some extra steps. You have to press the bolt release, you have to pull the charging handle back. Things of that nature, I think it really elevates your experience. It's a more of a mature experience of playing Airsoft, in my opinion. Thank you guys so much for sticking around and checking out our detailed deep dive into the 5PC-9 SMGs from Maruyama. Super stoked again that we're finally having these available regularly here on the stateside. And keep your eyes peeled because we're going to be bringing in some more of these Maruyama gas blowback airsoft guns, specifically things like the iOS 556, which we previewed at MOA Taiwan, and also their not MP9-ish, more compact PDW submachine gun that uses the same magazine. So super stoked on that. Again, keep your eyes peeled because they will be dropping pretty soon. But if you want to feed the algorithm gods, please make sure to let us know in the comments down below. Are you guys mostly still AEG players? Is that usually what you run when you play Airsoft? For me personally, when I made the switch to gas blowback, again, it completely changed the way I played. I kind of stopped relying or depending on the sheer output of my AEG to score me kills. I became a lot more cognizant and more, I guess, thoughtful about, you know, my positioning and my maneuvering and my shot placement. I think it really elevated the gameplay loop for Airsoft for me. So let me know down below if you guys are interested at all in making the switch over to gas blowback, because for me personally, it's so much fun and I can't stop. I can't put down the gas blowback, okay? But if you guys like what you're seeing, please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and ring that bell icon to get notified every time we upload a new video. And the best way to support the channel is to head on over to airsoftgi.com for all your airsoft needs. We have thousands of new products being listed every day. We have a lot of sweet banging deals that are always available for limited time only for you to come up with some really cool Airsoft stuff at a good price and a discount. And of course, the 5PC-9s are available right now at airsoftgi.com if you guys are interested. But other than that, my name is Boaz. We'll catch you next time, Mail Gang.